Welcome back to Alumni Game, the show where three Gamecocks dive into South Carolina sports, football, hoops, the NCAA, everything that comes along with it.
Where our opinions are never filtered, sometimes reasonable, and always fun.
That's right. You can check out all of those takes that we have on YouTube, Instagram, and wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on all those platforms. Settle in, y'all, and let's get started with this week's episode of Alumni
Game!
Hey, South Carolina fans, welcome back to Alumni Game. Just me and Buster here, but we're psyched for March Madness. Couple of buddies gonna talk some hoops, and we are back on Alumni Game, and we have a segment here that has basically named itself. It's so easy.
Yeah.
Bracket Busters.
Yep.
Go ahead, tell me. I know it's gonna be fair. I know it's gonna be imbalanced.
Yeah. No, we had to work really hard to figure out a catchy name to name.
Dude, the marketing team,
yeah, exactly. I say, so I'm here in the South, Columbia, South Carolina. So I want to start in the South region and talk a little bit about that bracket because Auburn is at the top of the on that side, and they're looking to get a national championship for the hometown War Eagles. What do you think?
I would just say everybody, March Madness. Like, we made it.
Yay.
Right? I mean, Buster's wearing green, St. Pat's, the daffodils or tulips or whatever they are poking up. I hear the birds in the morning. It's nice. It's been a long winter for us in the north of the east, not in the south. Even though you got snow and stuff, and it messed
we got snow. Right now we're dealing with something far worse. It comes down just as heavy as the snow there in the north. But there's a lot of pollen. If I ever sound stopped up or voice a little scratchy, it's because I've been breathing in a ton of pollen, and it's going to go away. It always does. We always talk about that first rain after the pollen drops that washes it away. It's a wonderful thing. But
if you were an animal, which you technically are, this would signal to you that spring is coming. When there's pollen, there's spring, and then there's stuff to eat, and like that. Yeah. We are animals, right?
The best thing about it is we do brave the pollen by sitting outside. And, before we got on, that's what I did.
You almost kind of have to. It's like anything you're allergic to, right? Like, I didn't have a problem with animals at all when I lived with animals. Now when I'm around cats and sometimes dogs, like I sneeze and whatever, and I get stuffed up. And people don't understand that. I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's nature. I don't know what to tell you. Like, if I lived with animals, I wouldn't be as allergic. And I feel like with you expose yourself to some pollen. You have to get outside, right? You're not Bubble Boy. You have to do that stuff. And there's a little pollen. Okay, you got some medicine to help. That's good too. But like a lot of dads out there would be like, rub some dirt on it. But anyway, spring is springing, and that means March Madness, and it's awesome, baby. It's really good this year. I feel like, honestly, is the quality there from top to bottom with this tournament? I don't know. Should 13 SEC teams be there? I don't know about that. I don't know that Georgia should be there. I'm looking square Gonzaga to do what they got to do there because, and then as far as South Carolina, just to do that, tough season, but they did gut it out, and coach wrote a letter to us, and I'm picking it up. I feel what they're doing and what's happening there, and it would be great if Murray Boyles comes back, and then we have something. If not, we'll see. But I think declining the NIT was the right idea.
I think so. Yeah, it allows you because the transfer portal window opens up what would be in the middle of the NIT tournament, and we know that Lamont has a plan that requires his tentativeness to be 100% for the transfer.
And it definitely included non-postseason. So, he was planning on non-postseason. So, by taking the NIT would disrupt his plans, definitely. And yeah, this team needs to improve in the portal. That's where they can improve. They can't do that if they're in the NIT. Do any of these recruits necessarily really want to be in the NIT? No, they do not.
No.
So, I mean, they'll play those games if that's it, but that's not now. So I get it. Yeah, I totally get it.
But enough of the NIT
Yeah,
and stuff
the
going on
South.
Gamecocks. Let's go back to the South because, and speaking of animals, I mean, we got the Tigers at the top from Auburn. So kind of looking at the bracket, people were talking about.
All right, name of the segment here, Mister Sir, is
right,
Bracket Busters. So
yeah, so I'm liking Michigan State, but one of my little dark horse teams out of that South region is actually Yale. If I'm going to be a fan of an Ivy League school, I'm going to be a fan of Yale because watching them in the Ivy League championship, they got a pretty good squad there. Like Obviously, I don't think that they're going to get all the way to the Final Four. Right now I do have Auburn going to the Final Four. In one of my brackets, I think I have them playing in the championship game.
Yeah, I mean, let's not get it twisted. They're the favorite. That's the favorite right there. So if this is a bracket busters, that's what we're going for. Number one overall here is in the crosshairs. I like what you're saying, Buster, because if you play out what you're saying about Yale, and they take out number 4, A&M, SEC team that probably knows Auburn pretty well. Yeah, probably even played this year, I think, and I'm not misquoting. And so, I have Auburn and A&M meeting up, and that is a showdown that everyone's going to want to watch. If Yale can take them out, it opens it up for Michigan, but I did it the other way. I have UC San Diego. I have UC San Diego over Michigan. I think Michigan is at large here. And I think UC San Diego is a 12 over 5 here that I have in this bracket that I'm looking at, where I have Duke overall. I have Duke overall. That depends on a few things, obviously. But I see what you're saying. You take out A&M, Auburn has a clear path to.
Well, and that's the thing is we have seen that A&M can be beaten. We have seen them not play well. We have seen them struggle from the field. So, the idea is that if we're going to go with bracket busters, I'm looking at teams that I think can upset the trend of all number one seeds.
I bet you I can call all of them, almost all of them, if you let me. So from the top, you're picking Auburn. I think you're going Creighton over Louisville, which is what I want to do here, and I want to do in a lot of my brackets here. UC I have, you don't. That's fine. That's a Richie special. Yeah. Yale A&M, I was thinking about it, but I kind of like North Carolina over Mississippi better, but I don't trust North Carolina, and I don't think even with the playing game, so I'm not going to do that. But Lipscomb over Iowa State is what my buddy was talking about. That seems crazy. But if you do that, if Lipscomb takes out Iowa State, then Mississippi beats North Carolina. That's an interesting matchup because now Mississippi could start doing its thing. So I kind of like that better, but Lipscomb is tough. I don't know anything about Lipscomb, I'll be honest. When I'm looking at here, they're barely getting 6% of anyone picking them. So don't do that. But then Marquette, New Mexico, Los Lobos they're sitting pretty. So there's a lot that could happen on this side of the bracket, and it all benefits Auburn if it happens. So.
Oh, yeah, no. I think, based on kind of what you're looking at below Auburn, whatever combination of what teams win, the biggest competition, I guess, for Auburn is
honestly
if Michigan State goes all the way. But that's
honestly though, they want Louisville. I think Creighton. I'm telling you, that would be massively a buster bracket because you'd have Auburn going down in the second round. That'd be crazy. Creighton feels a lot like when we get to another part of the bracket, like UConn sitting at number 8 is underranked, Yeah. But anyways, I think we did it in the South here. We pretty much hit every game. We'll slide over to the East, and mainly because I do have Duke in this bracket. Obviously, I have Duke here. Duke's the leader on this side. These two teams from these two sides would play to advance from here, right? Yep. So the only things I really have cooking over here, obviously Baylor with Mississippi State. That's an easy one right away, a 9 over an 8. Liberty. I kind of like Liberty.
I agree. Like I was looking at this side and I was all about Liberty, because to me, if you look at the bottom part, Alabama is a good competitor. They have it, obviously they
Robert Morris would be out of nowhere.
But then Vanderbilt, St. Mary's. I could see St. Mary's taking that, and then the thing
It's
is
split
Alabama
though.
has an easier
Buster,
path
that's
that
split.
way.
A lot of people have Vandy. A lot of people like a 10 over a 7.
Yeah, I know, but there's something to say about
St. Mary's is like more like a 5, and Vandy is a 10. So it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
The one I'm not hearing anything about is Montana. No one is doing Montana.
No one. Yeah, no, unless.
But VCU,
Badgers,
BYU gets interesting.
BYU has really. So I've heard that they put a lot of money in the NIL. Like they are like.
I'm slow rolling it on you, Buster. I think
million.
BYU could go all the way to Alabama if they.
Well, and that's the thing is if kind of how the things that I have planned worked out, it would be Alabama against BYU on that. Was it March 27th?
That's what I have in this bracket. That's what I have. Yeah. I have St. Mary's there. I have Bama Marys, which would be great. Bama wins. And on the other side, BYU beats number 3 Wisconsin, which actually could help Alabama a lot if you think about it.
Yeah.
And we're not giving Robert Morris the time of day. And I'm not really giving Akron the time of day up at the top here. But they could snipe Arizona. Arizona's done that before. But I think it's Oregon who loses here. Everything else is pretty normal. And then advancing that Oregon and Arizona would be fun, a 4 and a 5. But whoever it is goes to Duke and loses,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is it doesn't matter, the Baylor, Oregon, Arizona, Akron, like to me, none of that matters because eventually you're going to play Duke. So, the idea is that I guess if Liberty goes all the way.
So you also have Duke, Alabama on this side of the bracket.
Well, so I had Alabama, but all right, I'll say it like this. I have Alabama in one of my brackets, but then I also have BYU in one of my brackets.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, obviously.
I like that.
So it's one of those things where, there's the pattern can change in those first couple of rounds.
Yep.
But in the end, to me, one bracket is Duke Bama, and then the other one's Duke BYU.
Yep.
And then Duke, takes
patterns change and quadrants change, and we move over to the West, where I'm pretty much thinking you got Florida doing a lot of this. Early upset, obviously, UConn is susceptible to Oklahoma, but I don't think that happens. I think UConn could even beat Florida in the second round. I am feeling either Colorado State over Memphis or Grand Canyon over Maryland. One of those, and I think it's Grand Canyon over Maryland, to be honest.
If I agree. I think
some people have Maryland going deep. I'll just say that.
Well, and there's a reason why. And Maryland does have history, so I totally get it. But to me, it's. Ooh, man, UConn. Actually, I didn't think about that. So
I know, right? They're sitting there at an 8, and they're more like a 4.
Yeah, but here's the thing. This side of the bracket or this region, I have St. John's going.
I like that, but there's so many early games here that affect it, right? If Texas Tech stumbles somehow against NC Wilmington, if the winner of Kansas Arkansas, that's a big deal. Because that's St. John's up next. I think if Kansas wins, St. John's got to be careful. Then there is the history with Bill Self at Kansas and Pitino at St. John. So you would want that because you're going to see 2 legendary coaches going against each other. But I also think that Arkansas is one of those SEC teams that's a little suspect in this tournament.
No, they are definitely suspect. The way that
the kids would say they're sus.
The way that South Carolina beat them earlier this season, one of our very few victories.
I know. We got to bring it back to the pain that is our basketball season.
We smoked them, and we smoked them because, we were hitting our shots. We were playing, top-level defense.
So then let's go the other way. Kansas is winning that game, and St. John's has a test early, but they win that test, and then they just hope they don't get Texas Tech somehow. And they only have to deal with UConn. That would be the only way that St. John's can realistically get there. If they have to play number 3 Texas Tech, so they got to go. They got to do Nebraska, Omaha. Then they play Kansas and win. Then they play Texas Tech and win, and then they play UConn and win to go to the national.
That's a very tough.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is that's why I like putting someone like St. John's going to the Final Four because that is a tough test. But again, we've seen it happen before.
But
So,
you can imagine how I know about their coach, Rick Pitino, right?
how do you know about Rick Pitino?
Well, I mean, I am a Celtics fan. I'm a New England fan. I mean, he's coached for a long time. I mean,
Yes,
by this point, he's one of the more experienced coaches in the league.
So does that give that gives him the advantage, like, because he's got that level of expertise and he's been coaching?
I don't know.
For
In the
long.
NFL, you would say no because it's all young coaches and new concepts. But here, it's different, right? I mean, Krzyzewski's gone. Bobby Knight is gone. Like all the names I could throw out that the country knows. You can't always throw out a name like Rick Pitino and be like, "Woo, he's at St. John's." Yeah,
well, that's the thing, is that's why I have Johnny's going forward, because if you look at this tournament, like as far as big time coaches, Tom Izzo at Michigan State, Bill Self at Kansas.
Yep.
Technically, Bruce Pearl. He doesn't have the Bruce Pearl doesn't have
Bruce
the same
Pearl,
level of
that's a
longevity,
name,
but
yeah.
he's in there. And then
I know that name.
The thing is like as good as Duke is with Cooper Flagg, John Shire is not. I mean, he's obviously been an assistant coach. He was under Coach K. I get that, but as far as knowing the tournament, having the level of experience in the tournament, you kind of give the advantage to a guy like
for sure.
That's why as much as I like Florida, and they are a really good team, Todd Golden's very young.
Yeah, and I think that's why. Yeah, that's why someone like UConn I give a lot of credit to, because they've been here. Their storied program. That just because they're scrapping at 8 doesn't mean they can't do it. And if they can knock out number 1 in the second round, geez, that'll be great. But I do look just to reset a little on this side of the bracket. We're saying Florida. We're saying probably Connecticut. I think if the upset happens there, it's probably not Grand Canyon. It's probably Colorado State over Memphis, which makes it easier for Maryland. But if you want to go Grand Canyon, that's interesting too. It's just I'm seeing like 12% for Grand Canyon, but I'm seeing like 40% for Colorado State. So I get it. And Colorado State is suspect as well at number 12.
Yeah.
So then Missouri, I kind of got Missouri. I see Drake, but Missouri, Texas Tech, Kansas, St. John's. And that this side of the bracket isn't that exciting unless Florida does go down soon. Or Maryland when they drop. That'll be good.
I mean, it would be exciting to see St. John's go on that run, especially if they're having to face Kansas and then eventually, a Texas Tech. And then eventually they have to go, face the guys in the top part of that region. And so you can get an interesting basketball games, but it would require St. John's to have that tough schedule, to play those tough teams.
Some of these that were writing this story is pretty good. I mean, if Connecticut goes all the way, that's a run. If St. John's goes all the way, even as a number 2, that's a real run.
UConn going all the way would be awesome in the sense of, yes, they were back-to-back national champs. This could be 3 in a row. People were writing them off this year because they weren't as good. People were kind of not against, but Dan Hurley can be.
I mean, even Duke, even at the Duke spot at number 1 where they are, they're still going to have to play maybe number 2 Alabama, maybe BYU if that happens, maybe Michigan State or UConn or Texas A&M in the final. Like, they're going to have no matter who can win this, even if you're the number 1 overall, it's still a gauntlet. It's crazy. Yeah. So just to move over to the Midwest to kind of get towards the finale here. Look, number 1, Houston sitting over here. A lot of people picking them any which way but loose, and I get it. Their path is not that crazy other than maybe number 2, Tennessee, or number 3, Kentucky, or number 6, Illinois. And then moving on to, a UConn or Texas Tech or Duke or the other ones we've said. But otherwise in this, I'm pretty locked that Georgia isn't doing anything here, so there's no upset there. McNeese, maybe. And as much as it pains me, Clemson's look good. They maybe deserve to. I mean, they're a 5. They
deserve their spot. I just out of that side, this would be the easiest region as far as for Houston to be able to get to the Final Four. There's not a lot outside of maybe UCLA, Tennessee.
No, Busted, you just said it. You want to stamp this segment Busted? SIU over Houston would bust like half of them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that'd be fun. That would be great.
And Gonzaga could do it in the second round. They're another 8 that's sitting there in the weeds, much like UConn. You heard it here. UConn, Gonzaga. Watch them. 8s or mids. They could have been 6s. They definitely weren't 9s, and they can do some damage. And then going down, I like Illinois no matter who they play, really. Texas, Xavier, the play-in is kind of weak. But then it gets interesting, right? because I don't think anybody has Troy.
Nope.
So it'd basically be Illinois, Kentucky. That's a good one, 6 and a 3. And
Yeah.
then just to finish it out, I do have UCLA. I don't think Utah State, and I do have Tennessee. I don't think
Yeah.
Wofford belongs here either. But
I mean, congrats to Wofford to making the tournament.
sorry,
Spartanburg, South
yes,
Carolina represented.
sorry,
But,
in-state,
yeah,
yes.
no, I
That's
totally
the
get
polite
yeah.
thing to do. Yes,
Like we definitely are like rooting for Wofford in the sense of root for your this small private school up in Spartanburg.
Just a shout out to Sam. I think maybe somehow he got me a little sick through Zoom. But he definitely wanted to do this and definitely has a bracket, and he'll probably tell us how his bracket is gold and he wishes he could have done it. But yeah, no, I will say though, overall tournament looking pretty good the way they set it up. There's definitely, you're right. Teams belong as a 15, sure, as a shot. And it would be fun to beat Tennessee if they did, right? That's a border war. So that would be kind of fun. And maybe they're the ones to do it. So if you're watching Wofford, I'm very sorry and I wish you the best. But I mean, let's be honest with just the high level with everything we said. Probably something like Auburn or Florida or Duke. And then from there, what do you think? I might elevate UConn or
well, if we say let's pick a bracket that has no number ones in the Final Four. And so we're like, okay, well, who is most likely to take down the 1 seeds? Who's going to take down Duke in their region? Who's going to take down Houston, Florida?
Yeah, I think the number 2 that I was looking for was Michigan State, because I think A&M could take out Auburn, and then Michigan State could take out A&M, and then there we are, Michigan State. And I think Alabama could take out Duke. So those would be 2 number 2s for me. And then on the other side, you said St. John's, so there that is number 2, and then Tennessee. Yeah, all the number 2s. Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Well, and that's so I can definitely see, like, if we look at the Duke region, like Alabama or BYU can definitely take them out. We look over at Auburn region, like, yeah, there are teams there that can potentially take out Auburn. To me, the one region, which is the one we just talked about, with Houston. Maybe Tennessee can be that team, maybe a UCLA, but like there's no other team in that region that I can see, getting that upset.
What's the absolute lowest seed number that you think could win it all? That like if you were just gonna what?
I saw somewhere was that in the last 7 years, was it you that said it? Somebody was saying that the last 7 years, there's been a 7 seed in the Final Four.
Yeah, Sam said it in our prep before we
came on. So if I'm going to go with a 7 seed,
not in the final, but in the final. I mean, we talked about St.
Four.
Mary's. I don't think it's Marquette. I'll say that.
UCLA, St. Mary's,
or Kansas.
Kansas.
I don't think Kansas. I don't think Kansas. Kansas feels more like a 10. But I think what's the lowest that I think? I think I'm going to go where I've been going. I'm going to say number 8 Connecticut has a good shot. I think if they can take care of business against Oklahoma and start, and I think some teams are going to prove that 13 is a 1 or 2 too many for the SEC. I think. But I think Oklahoma loses that game. Sorry, I don't really even see them as true SEC yet, even though they are. But it's great to have them, and we like playing them. And Baker Mayfield's a lot of fun to watch too. But
all right, so instead of a 7 seed, I'll go with this.
Because I went to an 8. Would you go to an 8 or a 9?
So I'm going to go with an 8 myself and say Louisville. I could see them. That would. Auburn there's been games where Auburn, has been vulnerable.
Don't overlook Creighton, though. I watched that. I watched a bunch of their games.
Yeah, and Michigan's also good. If we're gonna go something like that, I'll say like Louisville as an 8. I think they could be a little bit higher.
I don't think either one of us is going to go higher than that. There's no 9s or 10s. I mean, I would say. No, there's really not. I mean, we were saying Liberty over Oregon, but I don't think they go too far. But they could. Yeah. I guess if I had to pick a 12, it would probably be Liberty. I don't see any others no, not McNeese, definitely not. Oh, I did pick UC San Diego over Michigan, so that would be possible. If somehow Yale did your bidding, then it would be
Yep,
Yale and San Diego, and then
that
whoever
would be
won that
fun.
would have,
Auburn.
Yale would have taken out A&M, so then Auburn's all of a sudden looking a lot better. But either way, I think, look, it is exciting. Even though 13 SEC teams are in there, it doesn't feel too crowded. They spread them out nicely.
Yeah.
And they might even play each other at points, which will breed even more rivalries outside of the tournament and regular season play, which is really cool. Like if Tennessee, Kentucky play, that's going to be big, in a lot of different ways. And I think that's what we're saying when there's 13, like what's going to develop from them playing each other. But I think when they play in the second, third round, it breeds like we're both gonna be in it. When they play, way early in the season, they'll both know we're both gonna be in this tournament in months.
Do you think how much of the nation will be pissed if it ended up being an all SEC Final Four?
Oh, so
because you have
the whole nation.
Auburn, Florida, you would have Bama on the other side.
I think you and I would be pissed.
Tennessee.
I think the whole country would be pissed about that, except the fans of the SEC teams that are in the Final Four.
Yeah.
I think
everybody would hate that.
Everybody would
figure out a way to never allow for that to happen. I mean, they pretty much did that like when it was Alabama LSU in the national championship. Like people absolutely hated that game, and it was not a good game. That was oh man, that was several.
Well, on top of everything else, Buster, the SEC is so spread out now that you're playing games near where these teams are because of the trajectory of all of it. So it's literally just going to be, okay, one conference is in the tournament. I don't know. But no, I think it's fine. I mean, look at the way they did it. And it's not like they're all the top seeds. Duke is the number one seed in the SEC, and Houston, I am blanking the
Cougars.
But their conference. SWAC or something? No, All-American or American?
Let me look at it. I can never remember.
That's bad. We should know that.
Dude, listen, I blame conference realignments. The
Big 12. Big 12.
Yeah.
They're Big 12.
They moved up in the Big 12 when like Texas and Oklahoma.
Okay. It's still bad on us. Shame. For shame.
Hey, listen, there's no Pac-12. Like I said, I still keep like saying, "Oh, Pac-12," and I'm like, "Wait a minute."
Yeah.
Stanford playing the ACC.
Well, it could be worse. I mean, like, where did Troy play? The Atlantic Sun. Okay. Yeah. I thought that was a newspaper. That's fine. But no, I think we covered this pretty well. Any other big headlines for you or anything you think are, especially, Gamecock fans want to see or hear?
Well, so the one last question I would like to ask you would be, who would be your Cinderella? If you have, because there's always a Cinderella every year. There is some kind of great story that goes along with it, small school or private school or this or that. Usually the Cinderella ends up not being in the Final Four. Doesn't get to
I think some of the upsets I talked about. I think Grand Canyon has been here, and I believe the Jackrabbits. Back in the NCAA tournament for the third consecutive year, bringing with it 4 starters from last year's team that upset St. Mary's in the first round. So Grand Canyon is like the new Gonzaga here, and they're at 13. So yes, but Maryland seems susceptible. If Colorado State takes out Memphis, then Grand Canyon could get a second win. And if Connecticut took out Florida, yes, they'd have to deal with Connecticut, but you'd rather an 8-1, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to see a path there for either Grand Canyon or Colorado State, but I kind of like Grand Canyon. And then I think just to go completely on the other side of things, I gave Akron absolutely no love whatsoever, and they aren't there, and Arizona is kind of the type of team that always kind of gets there and can't do it. So there's that. And we're, like I said, one friend was talking about Lipscomb, but I don't think they could do anything past Iowa State, so I don't know. Okay. Who would you think? Who is a Cinderella for you?
So for some reason, I was stuck on the Yale thing. I heard about it, heard some people talking. I watched their championship, conference championship. So that was technically there, but if you're going Grand Canyon, if you're going a geographical location name for a college, then I'm going to go and
For
agree
education.
with you with a geographical location for a college in High Point, 13 seed.
Oh.
They, they do play Purdue, but I could see them if they upset Purdue, then it's Clemson and McNeese, and I'm like, I could see it be McNeese over Clemson. So
Yeah, I don't know a lot about High Point. They aren't getting a lot here. This random stat is saying 15%. But it does also talk about them rolling to the Big South regular season and their conference tournament. And it's the first time they're here in history, so we don't know what they
yeah,
can do. And but they've also never been here, so
and that's
there's that.
why I want to pick them because that is a great story.
Well,
And
what's miserable about that story, though, Buster, is Purdue, because that would be another first round exit for Purdue, who used to have some awesome players and was heavily favored, and now they're kind of like, we're here again. And if they were to lose this game, Purdue, that would be tough. So look, more props on you for High Point, but that would be a rough day for Purdue.
I know,
And I
it'd be
feel
rough,
the
but
same with Clemson. Losing to McNeese would be a big letdown for them.
and again, I'm not coming from a expert point of view. I obviously have not watched any High Point basketball this season, but just for the sake of, you're picking a geographical location name for college. I'm going to pick a geographical location name for college.
Well, let's be done with that because they're saying geographical. But I would say, other than that, I would go a little religious, and I would say the more I look at it, that side of the bracket is a little religious in that it's BYU and St. Mary's. And
Liberty.
St. Mary's could be two SEC teams in a row and be Vandy and then Bama to get BYU. St. Mary's BYU could be a holy war, So,
yeah. I mean, imagine if Liberty gets in there. I mean, you can't even dance.
You got to fight for Liberty. You have to fight for Liberty. But no, I think that's the fun of it, is those aren't teams that we always talk about, right? Like, I became a big fan of Gonzaga years ago because they got in and they were darling, and then I just stayed with them and I just wore my jersey every year, and they're in it every year, and sometimes you just got to get in it, and that group of guys, it's much tighter than a football team, right? It's who's on the floor and who can rotate and who can come off the bench and give a spark, and there's a flow to a game, and there's a pace to a game, much like football, but it's tighter than that. And to see it happen in real time, like it's going to over the next few days, is really something.
Well, that's what the tournament teaches us. The tournament teaches us that these kind of teams, these smaller schools, and High Point that's never been there before, never discount the inspiration that a player gets for like not being talked about and not being one of the top seeds. If a team comes in, they're inspired because everybody's like, well, who are these guys? Do they even deserve to be here? That level of motivation, that's where you get like a Florida Gulf Coast coming in a few years ago. That's where the Gonzaga and Butler and VCU and like a lot of these smaller schools back in the day when people were talking about like who are these guys?
IUPUI.
Yeah. So like you never know.
No, and that feels like a good place to leave it, Buster, on Bracket Busters, Mr. Buster's brackets. Ended on a high point. Another shout out to Sam. He's gonna enjoy the tournament too. He'll be back with us on the next episode. But I think that's gonna do it for March Madness preview here on our episode of Alumni
Game.
Cox. No, nope.
Not us. We're not in the tournament.
Yeah!